So median first-time home buyer is now 40 years old. That is a record high. First-time home buyers represent roughly 21% of purchases last year. They make more money than any generation before them, and yet they still feel completely locked out of homeownership. And this does not make sense. If rates and prices were really the problem, higher income buyers wouldn't feel as stuck as they do. The real issue is nothing to do with the market. It is about debt, and nobody is talking about it. My name is Eric Hamilton, and this is my YouTube channel. I am a top 1% mortgage lender in the country, and our mission is really simple. When you understand data, you make much better choices. I review hundreds of real mortgage applications every year. And when you analyze real data, there are certain patterns that become very impossible to ignore. So let's get some context around first-time home buyers. First-time home buyer age has increased by nearly a decade since the 1980s. Careers stabilize later, families are forming later and later. That typically means higher income by the time people are ready to buy. Yet confidence is really at an all-time low. This disconnect signals affordability is not the full story. The bigger risk right now is for people that aren't buying and waiting to buy and losing all the years of appreciation. It's never getting started is the concern that I have. And what happens when it gets delayed and it gets delayed and the risk is too great later on in life. So peak earning years are typically in people's 40s and 50s. You have promotions, you have leadership roles, you have dual income families are more common. A lot of credit profiles are often stronger later on in life than in their early 30s. They're making better decisions, hopefully. On paper, buying should feel easier at 40. But unfortunately, for many buyers, it's actually feeling a lot harder right now. So, one of the things that we talk about a lot is debt right now exceeds $18.5 trillion. Okay, mortgage debt alone is over $13 trillion. Credit card debt is over $1.2 trillion. Student loan debt is $1.65 trillion. So debt has grown quietly for a lot of people through their 30s. Okay, when you're renting, you feel more comfortable. You only have a 1-year lease. You're traveling. You're making other decisions. Each payment at the time feels very manageable on its own. Of course, I can afford $200 a month here, $300, but all of a sudden it becomes a lot more pressure as they build over time. So together, what they're doing is they're erasing a lot of buying power and confidence in a lot of buyer. Consumer confidence, again, is at an all-time low. So the real problem is most buyers I work with at 40, they actually qualify based on the income that they make. Really at much lower debt to income levels than I've seen in previous markets. The problem is where they struggle is they don't qualify with the debt that they're currently carrying. So debt is the true gatekeeper right now to homeownership is for what I am seeing. Homeowners on average, okay, retire with several times more net worth than renters. This difference right now is largely in home equity. So most people don't realize this, but the majority of retirement wealth for the average American comes directly from real estate. Not from day trading stocks, not from perfect timing of buying Nvidia and selling it or Bitcoin, from owning a home and letting time do the work. So for many households, their primary residence represents 60 to 70% of their total net worth by the time they retire. And the problem is when you're waiting to 40 to buy a home, you're losing out on 10 years of growth, which is significant in the grand scheme of things, especially, later on in life when you're losing that extra gain. And then if you're not also contributing to your 401k because you're concerned about, debt load each month, now you're even compounding that problem even more. And that's the concern. The other thing to think about, which I think gets lost a lot, is buying at 40 just feels very different than buying at 30. Over 30% of housing cost burden is common among buyers, so meaning about 30% of their income on average is going towards housing when they purchase, okay? But fear at 40 is not a weakness, okay? It is a responsibility. Higher fixed obligations make it a lot harder. I used to ride a motorcycle everywhere in my 20s. I talk about this sometimes with people, and I had no fear. I had no hesitation. As life changed, I had a family. My thinking changed. It had nothing to do with income or anything like that. I just had different responsibilities. And when you buy later on in life, you have different responsibilities. Okay, so if you think about, you may have a kid, you may have a family, you may be in a job, you may have parents to take care of. When you're older, your risk tolerance is not what it was in your 30s. And buying at 40 is very different psychologically. But this is how buyers can win at 40. Okay, median first time down payment is around 10%, anywhere 7 to 10%. You do not need 20%. There are studies out there that 44 or 45% of people still think you need 20% down. That is not the case. Most people delay while they're saving. That is also causing people to delay. You do not need perfect rates. I would love rates to go down to 4%. I don't see that happening. I don't even know how much lower below 6% rates will go. I think expectations of rates moving lower are kind of hurting consumers in a lot of ways because it keeps getting talked about in the media. So I just feel like that is something we need to have better expectations on. You do not need the perfect rate. You do not need zero debt. The assumption a lot of times is, when we talk to buyers up front, hey, I need to pay down some debt. A lot of times we can help you structure that and put you in a position to be able to earn equity while also paying down debt. A meaningful share of first-time home buyers also get help from family and friends. 22% around get a gift for a down payment, according to National Association of Realtors. We see it all the time. Mom and dad are encouraging to buy. They're doing well in the stock market. They have savings. They're in retirement or close to retirement. They want to help their kids. Their kids are starting a family. We'll help you with down payment because they understand how important that home equity is over time and home ownership. So it's important dynamic to think about. Again, how do you win at 40? Education is the secret weapon well before buying. I cannot tell you how many buyers get involved. They walk into an open house, they go 100 miles an hour, make an offer, and they end up backing out because they get overwhelmed. They do no work up front. They get overwhelmed and what we call buyer fatigue. Okay? The buyers who win right now are the buyers who have a plan. Education reduces mistakes and increases confidence. It was estimated, I saw a stat that Fannie Mae has a home view education course online, and nearly 1 million home buyers have registered for that. You see countless places online where people are asking questions. The problem is, and the fear that we have in our industry, is most of the information that people get on some of these online places, not through reputable places, but they get bad information, Reddit and Google and all this stuff. It's like, I read this stuff and it's just alarming what people get on there. You just need to get to the right people and get the education that you need so you can create a strategy long before you ever see a house. The best time to make a decision is when you're not emotionally invested in that decision, and that is well before you see a house. Okay? How you also win at 40 is you need the right debt in the right structure, and a good reputable mortgage loan officer can help you with that. I help people months before they purchase, 6, 8, 10 months. Talk about debt. What can we do? These are your monthly payments. How do we get this? How do we free up? At 40, you got to remember too, you're not trying to max out your monthly payment. You are trying to sleep at night. The analogy I always give is when, someone calls me and they say, what's my max? What's my max? That's all they want to know. And I always say, well, what's your comfort level? Your max is going to be higher than what you're going to want to pay. Okay, so we want to focus on what every month you're going to get a statement in the mail, and that statement's going to have a monthly payment. Are you going to be comfortable with that monthly payment? That's what we want to focus on. So some practical things you can do today: choose a payment that protects your lifestyle and the stability of your family. Keep reserves as a confidence tool. If you got $50,000 to put down, maybe only put 30 and keep 20 in the bank as a you should have 6, 10, 12 months of reserves in your account if you can, to fall back on and make you feel comfortable. God forbid anything happens to you. Optimize debt to income for calm, not just approval. So we look at debt to income, but anything we look at is going to be important to you, and you're going to want to control those same things to make your debt structure better, and we can help you work on that. So, Think about this. There's a lot of sacrifice in buying a home, okay? And 65 to 70% of the average American household's net worth, again, is retirement and tied to real estate. That is not investment properties only. That includes people's primary residence. So you're not behind if you're 40 and have not purchased. The narrative has just not been told in the manner that it should. The best way to become a homeowner and switch that up is to control debt. And strategy, okay, is going to control your outcome and reduce the amount of fear that most people have with purchasing. So, why this matters long term? It's not about perfect timing. It's not about timing the market. It's not about, anything other than just putting yourself in the best interest moving forward. Okay? The average homeowner is 40 times has 40 times greater net worth than the average renter. Okay? Buy a home and let the home do the work. Okay, buying at 40 still gives decades for equity. People are living longer and it's still not too late. The real risk is not buying, okay? The real risk is just waiting too long. The real risk is also never getting started. So, what to do next? you know, Schedule a discovery call. We do a discovery call with every buyer up front and we just talk through the process. We don't start with an application. We talk through, what are your fears? What are you worried about? Have you been through the process before? What happened before? How can we help you better understand? We provide, a lot of conversations around that and talk through what our process looks like. Then we do the application. We go through everything. We answer all that. Then we run monthly payments. We still have never seen a house. We go through and say, okay, this is what a monthly payment looks like. This is what this looks like. And we provide, a lot of clarity up front before you ever see a home. No pressure, no rush, just a real conversation about what makes sense for you. And that is how we help our buyers each and every day avoid making a mistake. So if you'd like to schedule a discovery call, please feel free. We would gladly sit down with you. My team and I are available 7 days a week from 7 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. We'll have the link below to our discovery call. You can schedule time 7 days a week. Thank you.